Hello and welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World. What a crazy day we had yesterday. They fined the healthcare CEO shooter, and Daniel Penny was acquitted. Both of those were very interesting developments that sort of fought with each other throughout the day. I saw Daniel Penny's attorneys today at Fox, and they were lovely. They seemed very relieved, very professional. They obviously put on a great case on his behalf. They worked meticulously and, really appealed to the rational side of these jurors who all have ridden the subway or ride the subway regularly. And, as this thing was unfolding and as we were hearing more and more, it just felt like Daniel Penny was more and more justified in what he did. And my worry was, obviously, that if they found him guilty on the second count, the less serious one, that there's so many guys in the city that wouldn't come forward and help people when they were being held hostage by a mentally ill person, a deranged person who was ranting and raving and just scaring the living crap out of everybody. But he did the right thing. And a lot of people said that, this was racially motivated. The charges were racially motivated by Alvin Bragg. And I say that because, and I was thinking about this one day, if Jordan Neely were white and if Daniel Penny were a black Marine who served honorably, he never would have been charged. So yes, there was racial motivation in the charging the indictment itself, but I don't believe there was in the act. I think that, if Jordan Neely were a crazy white guy, Daniel Penny would have done the same thing. And that is someone who is looking out for other people. And you need people like that in order for a society to function. It's very easy to rely on those kind of public servants, like people who he obviously served in the Marine Corps, but he also is someone who is looking out for people who are more vulnerable. Jordan Neely, in his own way, was vulnerable. And then his dad is coming out like, they failed my son. It's like, you failed your son. Sure, the system failed your son, but you also failed your son as his parent. So you didn't get a payday. How dare you? And then you have the reverse side of the coin. Luigi Mangione. I don't know how you say his last name. I don't care. I'm actually a little upset that we're saying his name so much. The deranged shooter of the UnitedHealthcare, their CEO is now dead. And this kid, of course, I was completely wrong. I was like, he's Russian special forces. He was hired by someone. He was not. He was a kid who had a good torso, lovely cheekbones, and an absolute screw loose who probably had too much access to everything and felt too entitled and went insane because of his pain, made him insane in the membrane, but also the bubble that he was raised in, going to a $40,000 a year middle and high school, where he graduated valedictorian in 2016. And all of his classmates said that he was a normal kid. And, he was supposedly really good at pickup lines, I read in the New York Post. But this guy is a product of a system that props up people and just continues the sense of entitlement. And he's the kind of person in the world because he takes a very personal problem and thinks he's going to change the healthcare system by committing murder. And then there are so many people who rush to applaud him because they feel like, yeah, he's taken the man down. He's not. And you think that UnitedHealthcare is responsible for a lot of deaths? What do you think socialized medicine would do? You think a private health insurance company, a for-profit insurance company, is causing more pain and suffering than the rationing that happens naturally under a public healthcare system? So it kind of pisses me off that we have to get to the point where we have a conversation about private versus public health care, because it's like trains in this country. You're never going to make a system of trains that function like trains do in Europe. That is never going to happen. You're not going to have a socialized medical system the way they do in parts of Europe, which, by the way, has worse outcomes than the medical system here in this country. So they think that we're just naturally going to go to universal health care because some deranged, entitled, Ivy League a-hole shot and killed and stalked an insurance CEO in cold blood? You think that's what's going to change the system? No. And in fact, somehow I have a feeling that insurance companies will become more profitable because of this. So here's the biggest problem we have with healthcare in this country. There's too much government involvement as it is. There is way too much. It shouldn't be like this. This should not be the function of government. And I'm glad we're having the conversation about Doge and all the things, all the superfluous things in this country we don't need. A deeply entrenched half government, half private healthcare system is bad for everybody. And you know what it limits most of all, which extends people's lives? Innovation. A public health option will dampen innovation faster than anything. A deranged lunatic who, is an incel because he has a back injury, he does not get to change a conversation about how we do healthcare in this country. And I am so thankful that Kamala Harris is not going to be president, because I have a feeling in order to appease the foaming left that she would talk about, these are tough conversations that we have to have, and we have to have more of a public insurance option, because she wanted to destroy private insurance. So it was that mentality that fueled the murderous rage of this kid with the back injury. So I was also thinking about his back injury. And if you talk to anyone in chronic pain, it's a horrible way to live. There's no doubt about it. And I have no doubt that there was probably some other treatment that he wanted. And maybe because he's young and fit, and the system didn't deem that more surgeries were necessary, because also pain is one of those things you can't see. But he will be feeling so much more pain for the rest of his life in prison. I'm very confident that he will be found guilty of murder, and he's not going to get the death penalty, but he's going to be on a very uncomfortable metal slab of a bed and a half-inch mattress for the rest of his life. He is not going to get weekly massages. He is not going to get acupuncture. He's not going to get Reiki treatments. He's not going to get chiropractic care. He's not going to get the pins taken out of his lower back. He's not going to get any of those things in prison. He's going to suffer, and he's going to be miserable. And now, because he was screeching going into his hearing, and, screaming, God knows what he was screaming. I don't even care what he was screaming. He's trying to seem insane. He's not insane. He's not insane enough to be, he's not like John Hinckley Jr., where, he was so crazy and wanted to date Jodie Foster so badly, really barking up the wrong tree there, huh, son, that he tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan. Nope, this guy knew what he was doing. He had a philosophy. He had a worldview. He had a plan. He was a reader. He's has consciousness and enough thought that goes into all of this that betrays the insanity plea that he will try, and they'll try and say that he was on the spectrum and all this stuff. None of it will matter to a smart jury, the kind of jury that acquitted Daniel Penny. The same kind of jury will come together, and they will convict him because he's a horrible person, like Daniel Penny, also 26. And you see the contrast in the kind of men there are in this country. There are good, strong, capable men who look out for people who can't look out for themselves. And there are needy, entitled jack who feel like they have no recourse and the world has to be completely about them. So, what kind of guys do you want to see in this society? I'd rather see a lot more Daniel Pennies, and I don't care if we don't see that Zac Efron lookalike ever again. Prison is going to be very tough for him, and there's something about that. That's the only thing that kind of warms my half-cold heart. This has been Kennedy Saves the World. I'm Kennedy. Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.
Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.